Hello, kids. Welcome in. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show for another day. Happy to be with you for the next 3 hours, 180 minutes. That's our allotment of time. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is our episode 455. Allow me to get the pleasantries out of the way, and we'll get this show lumbering under its own weight. It is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. I mentioned it's our episode 455. You can find us on a variety of platforms. Obviously, we're on air. Believe it or not, contrary to what you read in the Nashville Scene, we are a radio show, not just a podcast, on 99.7 FM, 100,000 watts from southern Kentucky to northern Alabama and all points in between. You can also find us on a variety of streaming platforms, really just any platform of your choosing. If you stream information from a place, type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN and take us on the go wherever you might be. And then there's Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, available to you for your viewing pleasure. Always appreciate the F&M Bank chat line, and those of you who participate in the F&M Bank chat line, you're invited to do so. Episode 455 of the talk side of the proceedings is entitled by Bell K. And what is it?
The Matt Murphy Show. We have no time for humor today. We have a comedy show to get to.
Well,
Libertarian lunch, noon to 3. Zanies bar food.
Yeah, there's a danger that's going to happen later on tonight, and it involves that bar food. Because I always tell myself that I'm going to be good, and then I get there and I realize that there's no way to be good at Zanies because everything is fried.
Right, but there's also another element to that we've discussed.
Yes, and when you go to a comedy show, they don't have 2 drink minimums anymore. They have 2 item minimums.
Items, yeah.
And so the problem is that if you have one of those, if you go one direction, you're eating that food that you're not supposed to have. And if you go the other direction, you're eating the food that you're not supposed to have.
And then you want the other food you're not supposed to have.
Right. One way or the other, we'll have a good time. Bell, myself, Mac Morey was invited, just for the record.
Dusty, if you're listening, I actually asked Matt if he wanted to come see the show, and Mac said, I quote, F that guy. Actually, he didn't say that, but that's going to be the story.
Bell's going. I'm going. Mac Morey was invited, and Mac said, no thanks. I've got better things to do.
Well, that's not. Well,
that's what he said.
He's got his podcast here.
That's what he said. I asked him if he could do the podcast the next day. He said yes. I'm not going to not be offended by this. Although
I don't blame you, actually.
Although I would agree with you that Mac Morey's doing the right thing, and I have great respect for what he's doing. I have great respect for the fact that he's not going to go out with us and have a good time. Instead, he's going to do some work on the sports side of things. At the same time, that doesn't mean I'm not going to give him hell for it. Speaking of giving people hell, we have Justin Kanew coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon. At least he is scheduled to be in studio with us at 1 o'clock. Justin is the proprietor of an organization called the Tennessee Holler. Many of you perhaps are not familiar with said organization. We'll become familiar together with Justin in studio. At 2:05 this afternoon, Senator Jack Johnson will stop by. He is the Senate Majority Leader in the Tennessee legislature, and he will respond to, frankly, accusations leveled against the Tennessee Senate by Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton. Those accusations leveled this past Friday. We followed up on those yesterday. Cameron Sexton scheduled to be on the show tomorrow to kind of shore all of this up and figure out where we're going from here. We will do that at 2:05 this afternoon. That follow-up expected. No, it should be a good time. In the meantime, Tim Burchett is in the news, accusing former Speaker of the House, speaking of, Kevin McCarthy, of a physical altercation in the halls of Congress. Representative Kevin McCarthy has been accused of shoving a fellow Republican congressman who helped oust him as House Speaker. In an on-camera interview from the Capitol Hill steps after the alleged incident, Representative Burchett alleged McCarthy came up and took, quote, a cheap shot from behind. Here's what Burchett had to say about the matter. Hold on. Let me see if let's make sure. Do I have that up? Oh, wait. No, wait. If Murphy could run the thing.
Explain to us what happened with you and Kevin McCarthy.
Well, I was doing an interview with
Claudia from NPR, a lovely lady, and she was asking me a question, and at that time I got elbowed in the back, and it kind of caught me off guard because it was a clean shot to the kidneys, and I turned back, and there was Kevin, and I for a minute I was kind of, what the heck just happened? And then I chased after him. Of course, he's as I've stated many times, he's a bully with $17 million in a security detail. He's the type of guy that when you're a kid would throw a rock over the fence and run home and hide behind his mama's skirt. And he just, he from behind, that kind of stuff. That's not the way we handle things in East Tennessee. If we have a problem with somebody, I'm going to look them in the eye and talk to them.
Okay, so he walked down the hallway, hit you with his elbow.
Yeah, you can go on Claudia's Twitter account. It pretty much, or X account. It's very accurate.
Okay, so then just explain. So you chased him? What do you mean you chased him?
I just ran after him. I was like, what the heck? Why'd you do that? Because it was, like I said, if you've ever been hit in the kidneys, it's a little different. You don't have to hit very hard to cause.
Yeah, so there's Tim Burchett's version of events from an interview earlier today telling reporters that McCarthy's actions seemed deliberate. And then he went on to say, by the way, Tim Burchett scheduled to be on our show. We had already scheduled him to be on tomorrow at 1:35. So we'll get a full-throated accounting of events from Congressman Burchett himself, saying that he'll take a polygraph test and have Kevin take a polygraph test. It was a cheap shot by a bully. Burchett said he didn't plan on taking any further action against McCarthy, including any House ethics complaints, adding the former House Speaker would likely cash in after Christmas. I don't think it's okay. These complaints go on for years, and he's going to be out of here after Christmas. Like I said, he has $17 million in a security detail, and he'll still be a bully. So you have these types of schoolyard shenanigans going on in Washington, D.C. In the meantime, the war between Israel and Hamas continues with a bunch of Hamas liars promoting and propagating their lies through a willing and compliant mainstream media. To wit, the center of attention is now surrounding the Shifa Hospital, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's in Gaza, and there are propaganda photos coming out of that hospital with Hamas promoting the idea that Israel is preventing them from getting some of these individuals the help that they need. The Israeli Defense Fund counters by saying that they have given everything to the Shifa Hospital that was asked of them, to include fuel, but that Hamas themselves refused to allow the fuel to get to the hospital. The IDF on Saturday night coordinated a transfer of fuel for urgent use for the Shifa Hospital, which is the central hospital in Gaza, which was found to house a central Hamas headquarters. This is what they do. This is standard operating procedure. They've been doing this for years. They throw rocks, they hide their hand, and then they hide behind the skirt tails of individuals that they proclaim Israel wants to kill. And sadly, when there is collateral damage, they'll claim that the collateral damage was intentional after all. In a recorded conversation, a senior Israeli official at the Coordination and Liaison Headquarters can be heard coordinating the delivery of fuel over the weekend to the hospital's entrance with a senior Gazan official at the Shifa Hospital. So, while they are engaging in conflict with Hamas, an organization that literally hides behind these people, they are expected to avoid any damage to the hospital itself or to the individuals inside, obviously. And then Hamas refuses to allow the hospital to get the fuel because it's not in their organization's best interest to allow the fuel to be delivered. Imagine this. So the worldwide community shakes their finger at the Israelis. By the way, there was a ceasefire in place on October 6th. Let's be really clear. Who broke the ceasefire? Hamas. They did so in a terroristic fashion, killing 1,300 to 1,400 unarmed and innocent individuals. And so now that the Israelis are responding, suddenly Hamas and the rest of the Palestinian supporters want a ceasefire. Put that on the side burner for a moment. So now that we're engaging in a battle, the Israelis are trying to find the fighters that they're fighting against. They're hiding underneath a hospital. We're told that the hospital does not have the fuel it needs to survive. The Israelis agree to give the hospital the fuel. Despite the fact, by the way, and I should note, Hamas has plenty of fuel. They have fuel storage in Gaza that they refuse to allow the hospitals to use. I am not making this up. This is a fact. You can look it up. Hamas has fuel that they could allow the hospitals to use. They refuse to allow the hospitals to use it. And then when the Israelis, who are enemy combatants of Hamas, a terrorist organization, give fuel to the Shifa hospital, the terrorist Hamas group refuses to allow the Shifa hospital to use it. In a conversation with an Israeli Defense Force officer, a senior official with the health ministry in Gaza said that the CEO of the Hamas health ministry, Yosef Abu Rish, forbade them from receiving or using the fuel. These are the type of monsters that you're dealing with as an organization. Meantime, they're in Lebanon. They're in Qatar. They're not on the front lines in Gaza. They're not facing what the Palestinian people are facing. Many of the Palestinian people are in support of Hamas. Many are not. But it's impossible to tell the difference, particularly when Hamas rules the outflow of media from that region of the world. So there, you've got that going on. A little bit closer to home, let's get a follow-up regarding Cameron Sexton and our conversation with Cameron this past Friday. So the Tennessee House Speaker, as we discussed with Michael Patrick Leahy of the Tennessee Star yesterday, he has indicated that the legislation that he was referring to in the special session, for those who did not hear the interview, I asked Cameron, was there anything that the Tennessee legislature could have done in order to prevent Shaquille Taylor, the individual allegedly responsible for the death of Jillian Ludwig. Jillian Ludwig, of course, is the Belmont University student who was gunned down in an accidental spray of gunfire. Well, it was the spray of gunfire was intentional. She was accidentally hit with that spray of gunfire and killed as a result. And so I want to know who's to blame, because this person had a rap sheet as long as your arm. They were allowed out last April as a result of what seems to be a loophole in the law, although Michael Patrick Leahy indicated that it was not a loophole at all, that there was remedy, there was a recourse for the district attorney to take that he chose not to take as a result of how the law is written, and he allowed this individual, even after being accused of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, to get out of jail. So I want to know if there was something to be done about this. Is there something that we need to do about this? Cameron Sexton said that they tried in the House of Representatives to pass legislation that would have handled this situation. I doubled down and said, Cameron, you're saying that if the Senate had played ball that Shaquille Taylor would have been in jail? Yes, he said. Well, he's referring to House Bill 7036, which never actually came up for consideration on the House floor. I have been sent a copy of this legislation, and I believe Michael Patrick Leahy was sent the same piece. And in the legislation, what it seems to do was change the language between immediate and imminent in House Bill 7036. Now what Cameron Sexton is saying, and he'll be on the show tomorrow, is that he had an additional amendment that would have gone even further with regard to the ability to keep Shaquille Taylor incarcerated in jail, even if he's found to be incompetent to stand trial for the crimes he was accused of committing. And if you're just catching up on this story, what happened, Shaquille Taylor was accused of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He was accused of shooting into a car. It was determined by a 3-doctor panel that he was incompetent to stand trial, did not understand the charges against him. However, The authorities said that they did not have enough with regard to his mental frame of mind in order to involuntarily incarcerate him. Some are wondering why one does not automatically trigger the other. For the life of me, why does one not automatically trigger the other? If you are accused of a serious crime, a felonious crime, an assault on an individual, aggravated or otherwise, attempted murder or whatnot, if you're found to be incompetent to stand trial, that should trigger a psychiatric evaluation of you for a period of time, at least. But that doesn't seem to be what happened in this case. So we'll continue to go over the details of that and anticipating a conversation with Jack Johnson a little bit later on this afternoon. Your telephone calls all day long. Of course, 615-737-9986. We love talking with you. We love hearing from you on the super text line. You're invited. 615-737-9986 should be a good one on the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy. I want to talk to you about your home's safety. Do you have firearms in the home? Do you use those to protect yourself and to protect your family? Do you have something that protects those firearms that protects you? I'm talking about a gun safe from Nashville Safe House. Mark and his team have more gun safes than you can shake 5 sticks at. I mean, they've got a lot of selection. They have names like Browning. They have names like Rhino. They have names that you know and you have come to love, like Fort Knox or Champion or Superior, for that matter. They also carry vault doors and storm shelters. We don't mention the storm shelters nearly enough. And I have mentioned this over the past several weeks. Since November 1st, it's back again, baby. Gun safes are sales tax free at Nashville Safe House. Thank you to the Tennessee legislature for making that a reality. We want to incentivize and encourage you to go and protect your weapons that protect your family with a safe from Nashville Safe House. Go to NashvilleSafehouse.com to find out more. That's NashvilleSafehouse.com. Or better yet, stop by 4th Avenue South, right across from City Cemetery. Tell Mark and his team that Matt Murphy sent you to Nashville Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. It's 12:25. Glad to have you along for the ride. Would absolutely love to hear from you. 615-737-9986. That's our telephone number, 615-737-9986. Always open and available. Even when we have guests, it's open and available, although sometimes we have to punt phone calls down to the end of the line, and I apologize for that. But up and running right now. You can also super text us any time of the day or night. That's also at 615-737-9986. You can communicate via a variety of forms of social media to include I'm on Twitter or X more than anything. At Matt Murphy Show. That's at Matt Murphy Show. I'm also on Truth Social, and you can find me on Facebook as well. Although my primary form of communication is via Twitter/X. Just letting you know. So I noticed that we received a little play in the Nashville Scene, although the individual responsible for the article got some significant things wrong. To include the platform on which the platform that we have here at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. From an opinion piece by Betsy Phillips out of the Nashville Scene, which is, you know anything about the Nashville Scene? I guess it's a weekly publication. It's a leftist weekly publication in Nashville.
Yeah,
right?
It's been around forever.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of
like 35 years.
It reminds me of when I was back in Atlanta, they had creative loafing.
Yep, exact same thing.
Same thing. Okay, sure. State House Speaker appeared on Matt Murphy's podcast where he blamed the state Senate for not passing meaningful legislation. And so the reason I'm responding to this is that Betsy wrote me directly, which is nice. She did so through the Nashville Scene, but the beginning of her article says, "Dear Matt Murphy." That's me. Hey, Betsy. It appears as though State House Speaker Cameron Sexton is lying to you. I listened to your call with him on your podcast.
I think she listened to it after the fact.
Like on the podcast?
Yeah. Like when I posted the interview.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, we're a radio show. I mean, it's a little bit of a professional courtesy that the folks at the Nashville Scene would recognize. I mean, it's like me saying, "Hey, Betsy, I read your online letter to me," without mentioning that they posted it in the Nashville Scene. It's just a courtesy, whatever. I don't expect liberals to be courteous.
It's nice to know somebody's listening to the post we put up, though.
Oh, that's true. That's nice. I heard him telling you untruths, and you just sat there and went along with it. This is kind of beside the point, but man, so many conservative men in this state run around claiming that the natural and right position is for y'all to be heads of the household and the public face of the family. What the hell are you talking about, lady? One, I'm not conservative. I've never claimed to be conservative. Number two, I don't typically talk about the natural and right position for heads of household. I don't know that I've ever brought that up on the show, but, you do you. I just can't imagine submitting myself to someone who nods along and responds enthusiastically when he's being lied to. Andrew Jackson had more than his fair share of evil villainy, but if you lied to him, he was liable to shoot you. What? Miss Betsy, with all due respect, the first couple of paragraphs of your letter to me are all over the place. We've gone from the Bible to Andrew Jackson in the span of one paragraph. Okay, let's back up, she writes. As we all remember, Governor Bill Lee called a special session to do something about guns in the wake of the Covenant School shooting. The special session was called regarding public safety, not guns. I'm just going to try to fact check you as I go along. The shootings he wanted to do, the some things he wanted to do mostly had nothing to do with guns. Oh, good for you. You noted that. Because I guess he believes in associative magic. But if we do enough things in response to our gun crisis, even if those things have nothing to do with guns, the temporal proximity of the need and the action will satiate the need, whether or not the action directly affects the need. Y'all following so far? Betsy's letter to me? It's kind of like wanting a boyfriend, so you sit at home and eat Cheetos that, if you squint, seem to have faces on them, thinking that magically a boyfriend will appear at your door. I am certain that Betsy thought that this was witty and inventive when she wrote it. I'm sure of that. It's not, but I'm sure she thought that. Governor Lee's magical thinking ended up not mattering because the State House held a week-long simmering riot while the State Senate ghosted us with no real business getting done. Actually, business did get done in the State Senate. I would encourage you to look up what did happen. Last week, a Belmont University student was shot and killed because any old body who wants a gun in Tennessee can have a gun, even if everyone in their lives know they shouldn't have one. I guess this must be the kind of embarrassing for Sexton because people who are very easy for Republican voters to identify with, small children at a private Christian school, a lovely and kind Belmont student, etc., keep getting shot by people who obviously should not have had guns. So Sexton calls into your show, Matt. She's back on track now. And tells you that at least some of the blame lies with the state Senate because they left town and didn't pass any bills that might have been helpful. He even says we had a bill with General Funk about misdemeanor crimes getting a mental health evaluation. Matt, which bill? Is it HB 7027? Hot tip, it's not. It's HB 7036. She goes on to say, don't give these guys a platform to lie to you and your audience. Have some self-respect. You don't have to duel him, but maybe ask for receipts. Well, we did get receipts. And we'll talk about more of those receipts coming up in just a moment. After we talk about the Iroquois Steeplechase, and we're doing that next. It's 12:32 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here for the Tennessee Men's Clinic. 2 locations to serve you. One's in downtown Midtown Nashville, I should say. The other in Cool Springs and Franklin. Those 2 locations, you can call one number and receive an appointment at either of those locations. And I encourage you to do that, especially if you're a guy and especially if you're feeling sluggish, run down. It is a simple fix. Or at least it could be, but it takes an examination. That's what Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to impart to you, that for a low cost to you, they will get you into their facility, they will give you an examination, they will get some blood work done from you, and they'll check some of those blood levels. And in doing so, they'll find out if your energy loss is due to maybe loss of T-level, that can be easily taken care of at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. And if that's the case, you can get back to energetic life again, back to gains at the gym, back to working out at the gym, back to working in the yard. I mean, all of these things can be possible with a simple visit to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go by TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to find out more or schedule an appointment today. 615-208-9090. 208-9090 for our friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. We'll get back to your calls momentarily. Many of you dialing in, 615-737-9986. We'll continue our conversation about the article appearing regarding us. It was a letter to me, and I feel compelled to respond to it because it was addressed to me from a woman by the name of Betsy, writing for the Nashville Scene. I don't know if Betsy is an author for the Nashville Scene. I don't know what her association is. It doesn't really say. She just signs it best Betsy. So I'm trying to respond to Betsy, and in the midst of doing so, I'm getting more and more confused about what her point is. We'll pick this up on the other side of things. Right now, however, we want to go to Dwight Hall and Autumn Eklund, who are with the Iroquois Steeplechase, to talk to us about exciting events coming up. I know that it seems weird that we're talking about the steeplechase, which happens in spring right now, but there's a very important reason. We welcome Dwight Hall and Autumn Eklund to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dwight, Autumn, good afternoon. How are y'all?
We're great, Matt. Thank you for having us.
Well, it's absolutely our pleasure. It seems, I'll start with you, Dwight. It seems a little maybe odd on first blush that we're talking about the steeplechase in November, but there's a good reason for it. Just talk to us about why we're speaking today about this event, because there's an important there's some important markers coming up with regard to ticket sales.
Sure, and the reason we're talking about today is tickets went on sale on November 1st, and we want to make sure people have a chance to get tickets to the venues or the areas that they want to be in. We have some areas that sell out very quickly, and we want people to be able to get ahead of that. So November 1st was our launch date, and, it's kind of interesting. I've already seen that the Tennessee Titans, even though their season isn't over, are already launching tickets for 2024. So we're really, even though it seems so, we don't think we're really that far in front of things.
Well, and Autumn, for me, I've only been in Nashville for several years, but one of the first events that I attended when I came to Nashville was the Iroquois Steeplechase, and it's sponsored by Bank of America, of course, Saturday, May 11th. It is kind of a rite of spring for a lot of us in Middle Tennessee that this is a symbol that spring has come for another season when we know that the Iroquois Steeplechase is right around the corner, correct?
Yes, it is, and I like to tell people that if you've never been, you need to try it because it's more than just horse racing. It's a festival. We have food, fashion, music, and at the end of the day, we are giving back to the community. Our event has given over $11 million to the Children's Hospital, Friends of Warner Parks, and also the Foundation for the Horse. So for us, it's all about the community, the children, the parks, and the horses.
What are some of the various activities, Dwight or Autumn, either one of you that want to answer this question? I mean, specifically at the track, because I know what a wonderful experience it is, and you're right. It's wonderful for horse racing aficionados, but just for someone who wants an incredible social event, there's so many different things going on. Just talk to us about a couple of those things.
Why don't you tell me about that, Autumn? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that one. So, a lot of people have fun in the box seat area or our tailgating packages, but I really want to talk to you about two amazing venues that are very popular, and they've become very popular the last couple of years. So the first one is Royal 615. It's an exclusive infield trackside venue. We have DJs, entertainment, lounge seating, access to cash bar and food trucks. And then the second popular area, and probably one of the best things on the ground, I think, from a price and a social scene perspective, is the Hunt Club. It's on the hillside. It has trackside views, drinks, food, and a guaranteed seat under a tent all day. So you can't beat those two options. If you're wanting to come and just enjoy the day, we highly recommend those.
And Dwight, tell me how people can find out some of the various pricing and some of the ticket opportunities for them. What's the best way for them to find out additional information about the 83rd annual Iroquois Steeplechase?
The best way is to go to our website, iroquoissteeplechase.org, and there you can view all the various ticketing options we have, the pricing for that, and a description of the area. For example, Autumn was just talking about Royal 615, and you can read more about it and really get a feel for it. So if you go to our website, everything is right there, and then you can purchase your tickets while you're in the website. So hopefully it's very easy to navigate and to get your tickets for it.
I strongly encourage everyone to come by the Champions Corner VIP 10 section. We're there every year. I've been there a couple of years. What a great place to watch the race. What a great opportunity to have food already built into the ticket price. It's a wonderful place to be. And I'm not saying that just because I'm there, guys. I'm saying that because I think it's a wonderful area to spend the afternoon. What else do we need to know, Autumn? Anything that I've missed about the ticket sale? I know Black Friday sale is going on, and there's some great deals to be had there, right?
Yes, I was actually going to bring that up for you, but you beat me to it. So the Champions Corner is a great area. You guys are doing a Black Friday sale. So if someone's looking to get a discount on a price with food and drinks in a great social area, check it out. Come see us. We can't wait to have you there.
Well, we look forward to being there. Go to IroquoisSteeplechase.com. Iroquois is IROQUOIS. IroquoisSteeplechase.com, and you can also find out additional information and links up at our website, 997WTN.com. Dwight, Autumn, wonderful conversation. So look forward to the holiday season, and before you know it, we'll open up our packages, and there'll be Iroquois Steeplechase tickets under every tree in Nashville, and then before you know it, there's spring with our Nashville's Rite of Spring, the 2024 83rd Annual Steeplechase. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
so much.
Look forward to seeing you next spring.
Look forward to seeing you guys as well, and we so appreciate you being on the show today. Good folks, Dwight and Autumn with the Iroquois Steeplechase. Just reminding you, I mean, we're big fans of the organization. We're big fans of the event. We're big fans of how they give back to the community. We've been there. I've been there every year since I've been in Nashville, and wanted to remind you that tickets are on sale right now. 615-737-9986, our telephone number, as we get back to conversation with Gina next up in Nashville. Hey, Gina, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to kind of bring to everyone's attention, I'm in Nashville, and our children go to public school, kind of on the younger age. They go to an elementary school in Brentwood. I'm not going to say the name right this second because we're just starting to go public with this. Last week when we were walking the halls at an after-school event, we noticed that they have a trans flag in the hallway for grades kindergarten through 4. Trans LGBT flag, and along with some other imagery. The flag also said MNPS for all, so this is not specific to that one school. It's all of Metro Nashville schools. Kindergarten, I can only speak kindergarten through 4th grade because that's the only school that our kids go to. Additionally, under that, there was some other signage and imagery that was very focused on race. And the issue I have here, I have no issues with adults doing whatever the hell they want to do. You can do whatever you want. That's fine. I'm not anti any of this stuff, but for children, I really think this needs to be known for all parents, and our children do not need to be exposed to that, especially kindergarten through age 4. They're already confused. They're changing their identities all the time. That's completely normal, and I just fear that we're celebrating this at such a young age that it's becoming more and more popular, and kids are going to be choosing to do these things or to want to be doing these things that are very, social ideologies. Anyway, parents need to be aware that that's what's happening.
So just back up for a moment. I think I heard you correctly. I want to make sure that I did. There's what age are these kids where the flag is?
Kindergarten through 4th grade in the hallways.
Why in public school?
All of Metro Nashville public schools.
Why do we have trans flags in any of our public schools?
I reached out to the principal, and I've also reached out to Adrian Battle, who is the head of education, and a week ago, and I've had 0 response. I followed up twice. They are not even responding to us. I asked that question myself.
I mean, by its very nature, you are introducing a conversation into the school system that is inappropriate for those grade levels, period.
100%.
Right?
And my husband and I are going back and forth every night. We're like, okay, are we overreacting, right? And it's just something to where this is our fight. We have to fight this because this is a social ideology. We've not had enough time to study the effects on children, although we already kind of know the effects on children, how it's super high suicide rate amongst the trans community, which they'll come back and say, well, that's because, you're not accepting us in school. However, we haven't had enough time. This is a social ideology that's hit the mainstream very recently. Why are we introducing any social ideology into a public school? Let's focus on academics only. Let's focus on academics. That's what it should be about.
Well, I mean, obviously. I mean, we have enough issues in the public school system educating our children to the point that they have an ability to read at a third grade level by the time they graduate third grade, right? I mean, I don't understand why we're focusing on this, especially at that grade level. Inclusivity, fine. I mean, if we want to welcome people of all walks of life, all diverse backgrounds, all ethnic backgrounds, all racial backgrounds, whatever. That's all well and good. You can do that without infusing an indoctrination into the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm just calling because parents need to be made aware. I don't know what the action is. Gina's not even my real name. I'm afraid of retaliation because of what's going on in the world right now. However, if we don't get a response or even a conversation, this will be blasted on social media. I already have other news outlets. I have the imagery. I have pictures of it. But parents need to rally. We need to protect our children. If we wanted to, we can send our kids to a private school. We can. We don't want to. Well, this is a fight not just for our children, but for all children. Because even if our kids go to a private school, they're still going to have to grow up with these other kids who are being indoctrinated. And that's not okay for our whole future generation, not just private and public school. So parents, we need to rally. You need to see what's in your kids' hallways. The school's hallways. A lot of parents, unfortunately, are not. They can't afford to be involved. They don't have the time after work to go to these events, these after-school art crawls or whatever. But this is people need to wake up because it's in our education system.
The only flags, in my estimation, because you're opening up a tempest in a teapot when you open these doors, the only flags that should be present in our public school systems are the flag representing the sovereignty of the United States of America and a flag representing the sovereignty of the state of Tennessee. And that's it.
I agree.
Let me know how old are, you might have mentioned this, Gina, how old are your kids?
I'm not going to, I just don't feel comfortable saying that because I'm just trying to remain anonymous. But they are K through 4.
Are you concerned moving forward about the opportunities that are available to them in public education versus another alternative? I'm not trying to get into your personal business, but
right. Well, the reason why we picked this particular school is because it's 9 out of 10 on academics, which is what school is about. And when we first did our parent-teacher conference, we walked the halls and didn't see any of this. So this was put up afterwards. So, of course, you can look at other options, but at this point, I'm not concerned about my children because we have open, honest conversations. I'm concerned about other children whose parents are not involved, who are going to go to so-and-so and be like, what's this flag mean? What is it? What are they going to say to these children? Oh, guess what? You can be whatever you want. You can be a boy or a girl. You can change your parts. And, I don't know what they're saying to these children. And I spoke to a neighbor asking his opinion, and he's like, "Oh, well, it doesn't make a difference because they don't know what it is anyway." And that's a terrible mindset because exactly they don't even know what it's about. Why is it there? Second, I don't know who's teaching our children what this means, right? Because
what happened? I mean, no, you're asking the right questions. What happens when a second grader looks at their teacher and says, "What does that flag mean?" What kind of conversations are we opening up?
Right.
And are those conversations appropriate for that age of child? And obviously, the manner in which you describe it, they're not. I mean, and most reasonable people recognize that while those conversations might be necessary at some point in public education, they are not necessary whatsoever K through 4. And this lends to the narrative that there is an intentional indoctrination going on in our public education system.
And the other imagery as well, there's more, and it sounds nice. It's packaged pretty, like strong together. All colors are beautiful. There's an emphasis on different skin colors. And also this stronger together, you should see the imagery. It is communist. It's fists up in the air. It's literally your BLM imagery. which we now know BLM is a fraud. It's not even a real thing. A lot of people don't know that because they don't have time to research. But they have this imagery, and I made the school aware. You may not be aware, but this is communist, and most recently, BLM imagery. This is against everything that America stands for, and this is in the halls of the schools. And that revolution for skin color has already been fought. Martin Luther King died already for this. Judge not on judge on your character, not skin color. And now children are like, oh, look at my color, look at your color. They're putting emphasis on skin color again, which is so counterintuitive.
Well, and they're doing so in a way that seems to be almost punitive in nature to white kids. I mean,
exactly.
I have to put it right where folks can graze on it, that the idea of white privilege equals white racism is the same type of ideology that apparently led to the Covenant school shooting. Now, I'm not suggesting that wouldn't happen without evil and mental insanity involved, but it is a reality that these types of things can take hold in those mindsets and lead to ultimate tragedy. A great call, Gina. Thank you so much. I've got to run. I appreciate you being willing to call. I appreciate you talking with us about it, and I appreciate you stepping forward despite the fact that you're concerned about potentially being outed in the school system. I can understand that as well. It's 53 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Craft Body Scan is here for you, and friends, November is here, and November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Did you know that lung cancer is still the #1 cause of cancer death in the United States of America, despite smoking going down considerably from a percentage standpoint? It's still more than breast, prostate, and colon cancers combined. If you've ever smoked, if you've ever been exposed to secondhand smoke, if you have a history of lung cancer in your family, or exposure to any harmful elements in the workplace, you could be at increased risk. The ACS, that's the American College of Surgeons, reports that less than 10% of eligible patients are routinely screened for lung cancer. You need to be screened. And my friends at Craft Body Scan want to change that if you've not been. For the month of November, they're offering a $149 screening opportunity for you and a loved one. Whoever you want to bring with you, if they're a loved one in your life and you want to get a screening, $149 will get you a heart and lung screening for both. This is typically a $1,300 value that is offered to you at this low cost to introduce you to CT scans and the process at Craft Body Scan. It takes less than 10 minutes. It's easy. You remain fully clothed. The scan is read by a board-certified radiologist, and you get the results of findings. Get peace of mind today. Go to Craft Body Scan, spell craft with a C, craftbodyscan.com, or call 615-436-1000, 436-1000 for our friends at Craft Body Scan.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A sea of support in Washington, D.C., with thousands from around the country gathering at the National Mall for the March of Israel rally. Organizers say the event not only supports Israel and its battle against Hamas after the October 7th attacks, but also calls for the release of 240 hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza. ABC's Faith Abube is there.
There will be activists from across the spectrum. At the end of the day, they want to be here to embrace each other, show support for Israel, and also share the sadness and grief that they've been feeling since that attack in October.
Security also heightened for the rally. The National Guard also helping to keep the peace with anti-Semitic threats on the rise. In Gaza, weeks of fighting and airstrikes taking a toll, with deaths rising along with the humanitarian crisis. ABC's Matt Gutman, embedded with the Israeli military, says there is widespread destruction of buildings and tunnels that Israel says Hamas is using as command centers in civilian areas.
The Israeli military says that it controls the northern part of the Gaza Strip, but there is still intense fighting there. We saw those street battles ourselves. We were told that Hamas is still able to pop out of those tunnels and fire at Israeli troops and tanks, and they're still able to fire rockets into Israel. It gives you a sense of just how long this war could still last.
Another showdown shaping up to avert a shutdown. New GOP House leader Mike Johnson set to bring his resolution to the floor later today, with funding set to run out this Friday. He says the bill will be an extension until January, and then separate funding bills will follow. That's getting mixed support, though, on the Hill. Johnson said his two-step plan will help Republicans in talks over spending cuts.
When you have a small majority, it requires some things are going to have to be bipartisan. But I think these are issues that every member of Congress should agree on. We are on an unsustainable track with our debt.
The bill would face an uphill battle in the Senate if it passes, as well as the White House. You're listening to ABC News.
Hour number 2 starts right now. Matt Murphy Show, 106. Good afternoon. Welcome in. Coming up at 2:06 this afternoon, Senator Jack Johnson will stop by in studio. He is the Senate Majority Leader and has a few things to say about our conversation with Cameron Sexton from last Friday and perhaps some items that he believes can be addressed in the regular session of the Tennessee General Assembly coming up this January regarding the death of Belmont student Jillian Ludwig. That is the source of our conversation this hour as well, and I'll give you a little bit of the backstory before introducing you to our next guest, Justin Kanew. So I had Cameron on the show Friday. My question last week was a simple one. Who is to blame here? Someone has to accept a portion of the blame for the fact that Shaquille Taylor was allowed out of jail after being accused of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without any sort of any of those charges coming back to him. He eventually was arrested for an auto theft charge, grand theft auto. That charge, he was allowed out on bond for $10,000. And as he was awaiting a court date, actually, I think he missed a court date in that trial. He has now been accused of shooting indiscriminately at an automobile and eventually killing Jillian Ludwig. I asked Cameron Sexton if there was something that could have been done prior to this event that would have avoided her death. He indicated that he had proposed, in consultation with, I should say, District Attorney Glenn Funk, had proposed legislation that he believed would have prevented Shaquille Taylor from getting out of jail. So in the course of that conversation, and it was a good and robust conversation, and we followed up with him, we've had a couple of different people come forward and express their views regarding what the legislation would or would not have done, to include the Tennessee Star. Michael Patrick Leahy was here yesterday. We had an article written about us in the Nashville Scene, and I was reflecting on that on social media, and I made mention that Aunt Betsy, I guess her name is welcome to come on the show to speak. I'll talk to anybody. And Justin Kanew's name came up, and I said, well, I've invited Justin on. Justin never agrees to come on with me. He does not have I think I called it the testicular fortitude to come on with me. And Justin immediately popped up and said, hold on, pal, I did agree to come on with you, and you never responded. He presented the tweet, which I missed. And so I said, well, come on up. And Justin said, okay, I'm coming on up. And so Justin Kanew of the Tennessee Holler is in studio with us. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Matt.
How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for the invite.
It is my pleasure. Tell us, for those unfamiliar with the Tennessee Holler, how do you describe it?
It's a good question. We are a accountability journalism site, very digital, social media focused, that tries to yell the truth in our opinion about what's going on here in Tennessee. We're pretty openly progressive and, committed to certain things like trying to make sure people have health care in this country, trying to tell the truth about democracy, trying to push for things that we value, but also doing it in a newsworthy way and telling people what's going on at their capital. So we have about 11 hollers throughout the state. I run the Tennessee Holler. We have hollers in Knoxville, Memphis, Tri-Cities. And, we just work together to try to lift up the truth about what's going on here in Tennessee and hold people accountable.
Try to be a voice for progressivism in the state.
Sure.
So, I mean, in a way, you're doing for the political left what we're doing for the political right.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess you could look at it that way. I ran for Congress in 2018, and when I ran, I felt the weight of the Tennessee Star, and it just didn't feel like there was a counterbalance to that on the progressive side of things that was, telling what I believe to be a different narrative and a more accurate narrative about what's going on here in Tennessee, where we're at the bottom in poverty, at the bottom in infant maternal mortality, at the bottom in medical bankruptcies. We have all kinds of issues in our state that don't get talked about by the people in power. So it felt like there needed to be a source for that information that really let people know what's actually going on in Tennessee.
So you think Tennessee's doing pretty poorly?
In a lot of ways, absolutely. By a lot of metrics.
You, about yourself, you originally hail from California?
Not originally, no. Originally, I'm from New York. Lived in California for about 15 years. Went to college in Chicago. Moved here about 7 years ago with my family.
Why did you leave California?
Left California because I was in the entertainment world in Los Angeles, and we wanted to raise our family in a place that wasn't the entertainment world. And, we moved here, cost of living was lower, and, it was cows and goats and grass, and that felt like a place that we wanted to raise our kids. And Nashville is a great city.
I mean, yeah, the reason I ask is that, you came here for a reason.
Sure.
Was it the state that you thought it would be when you came?
Well, we didn't leave California because we were like, California is a cesspool and a hellhole, and we got to get the hell out of here, which I think is probably what you're hinting at.
No, not at all. I'm more curious if Tennessee was the place that you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, Tennessee's been great to our family. We love it here. It's our home, and that's why we try to work to make it as welcoming a place for everybody as we possibly can. So, I know I'm under no illusions that a lot of the things that we talk about and push for are not majority opinions in this state.
Yeah, sure.
But it feels like people need to hear the flip side of what's going on here and some of the things that don't get talked about a lot. And so that's the role I think we play as the holler. It's not to say Tennessee's a horrible place. It's not to say Tennessee is a place that people shouldn't come to. It's a place that actually has a lot of great things going for it, and I think it's worth fighting for.
You and I just met, but if someone who didn't know you looked at your Twitter feed, for example, don't you think it's fair that they would look at that and think, boy, this guy thinks Tennessee sucks?
I don't think we ever say Tennessee sucks. I think we say that the leadership here in Tennessee, the supermajority, takes it in a direction that hurts a lot of people when they don't focus on things like getting health care for people who need it, when they don't focus on things like raising the per pupil spending on education and keeping our schools at the bottom where they are and have been ever since I've lived here.
Are our schools at the bottom?
Per pupil spending they are, and then they've improved a little bit.
How much do we spend per pupil?
We're in like the 40 range, 42, and it's up from we were at 49 when we started.
So we may as well go. So tell me what amount of money would get us to the top. Tell us what amount per pupil would ensure that we would be in the top percentile.
Right, and I just had this conversation with Scott Sapicki at the Capitol about 15 minutes ago, and I don't have a specific number for you. But
of course you don't.
What I can tell you is
because there isn't one.
Removing billions of dollars in federal education funds is not going to take us in the right direction.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that.
And also,
we're not going to do that.
Are you going to let me talk? Did I come on here to have a conversation?
Well, you can talk when I allow because it's my show.
Oh, okay, I see.
And if you don't want to play by those rules, you can leave.
Oh, is that what you're going to try to do? Is get me to leave?
No, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you the rules of the game, pal.
Okay, but the point is that education is linked to poverty. It's linked to inequality, and so adding money is not necessarily going to change everything all at once. But taking away money is certainly not going to help.
Right, and they're not going to do that.
Well, they're looking at doing it. That's what they're doing this week.
But they're not going to do that. They're not going to vote on it in this general session. I can tell you that they're not going to vote on it because I know you ought to know. You're down at the Capitol.
No, I think that they're having.
They're going to tackle school choice, which is a big. School choice is a big way that we can improve educational opportunities for the inner city students that aren't currently getting it.
Not the ones that are going to be left behind. If you want to have private school vouchers, take money out of our public school system and go to private religious schools, then that's not going to help public schools in general.
That's not what the legislation does.
That is what the legislation does.
Well,
that's why
you're not reading the same legislation that I am.
That's why Illinois just let theirs lapse, because it wasn't improving outcomes. It was taking money away from public schools, and that's what private school vouchers do.
It's all a part of
Governor Lee's.
Thank you, Chicago.
It's all a part of Governor Lee's intention to dismantle public schools.
The teachers' unions in Chicago created a dynamic by which they are billions of dollars in debt, which is what is sucking the money away from the rest of the Illinois school system.
If you care about public schools,
you're not talking to somebody that doesn't know his game.
If you care about public schools in Tennessee, you should not be supporting Governor Lee's privatization push.
Are your kids in public school?
Yes.
Do they get a good educational opportunity? Are they in Williamson County?
Yes.
And do you feel comfortable with their education?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because Williamson County has some of the best schools in the state.
Right. Don't you think Williamson County schools take resources away from Nashville city schools?
I think. Well, I don't even know what that means. Yes, Nashville subsidizes the rest of the state through
you don't feel guilty about that?
What do you mean guilty about it?
That certain school systems in the state of Tennessee are suffering while your school system in Williamson County is doing so well. Don't you wish that those students in Nashville, for example, had an opportunity to come to Williamson County schools?
I think to give those students in Nashville an opportunity, we should fully fund our public schools and not be steering money to private religious schools through vouchers and charters and rejecting education funding. I'm sorry you don't like my answer, but that's the answer.
Your answer is full of misinformation.
No, it isn't.
That's the answer. I'm talking about allowing a parent to choose to move their child from the Metro Nashville system to the Williamson County school system where your kids go to school.
They already have school choice in this state. They can put their kids where they want to put them.
And the voucher system would further give them
the voucher system is not going to let
choose.
them take their kid from Nashville to Williamson County schools. It's going to let them take their kid from Nashville to a private school in Nashville, assuming they have the money to pay for the rest of it.
It's giving parents
most of the vouchers,
of an opportunity.
Most of the vouchers are being used by kids who weren't even the public schools to begin with.
From system to system,
vouchers are about.
You don't want Nashville kids in the Williamson County school system?
Of course we do. Vouchers are.
Why
if they live in Williamson County, they can.
No. I'm talking about living in Nashville, letting them go to Williamson County if there's space availability.
You're talking about erasing the idea of counties and local school districts.
I'm talking about giving parents more choice in the education of their children, Justin.
No, what you're talking about, they have choice. They can send their kids to private school right now.
You have money. You have choice. I'm talking about these poverty folks.
If you want to send grants to these kids, that's great. But what you're doing is you're taking money away from the schools that already exist that are trying to service all kids.
You would agree with grants coming from Williamson County, from your school
grants
system to the
anywhere.
Nashville system?
We're for more money going in and funding schools. Absolutely. But what we're not for is taking money from public schools that are already struggling, taking money away and steering them to private schools. Hurt the kids that are left behind.
Right, and that's not what the legislation
That is exactly what it does. And there's a reason that when that legislation passed, most Republicans didn't want it in their own counties, and it took bribery and threats from Glenn Cassida and military promotions being offered to people like John Mark Windle to get that passed, and he had to hold the board open because even Republicans didn't want it. And now what's going to happen this session is Rep. Mark White is going to try to push it to all 95 counties, which was what everybody warned about to begin with, and that's what's coming down the pike. So again, if you support public schools in Tennessee, and you don't want to see more money steered to private school vouchers away from your public school and your teacher where your kid goes to school.
If you don't want to have any choice, says Justin.
You're only thinking about a few kids. We're thinking about all kids.
I'm thinking about everybody. You're only thinking about your kids over there in Williamson County. That's fine.
No, we're thinking about kids in Murray County and Perry County and Hawkins.
Are the people of
you're wrong about that.
Are the people of Tennessee good people in your mind?
Yeah.
Then why do they elect such bad people?
I think they don't get the full story, and that's why the holler exists.
Really? So you think the people of Tennessee are just too dumb to recognize who is acting in their best interest?
No, I don't think they're too dumb.
But the people of Tennessee have elected a Republican supermajority.
Yes.
Right? Why? Why did they do that?
I think they only hear one side of the story.
So they're too dumb?
I think they only listen to 99.7. I think they only listen to Fox News.
They're listening to you. I'm asking
That's why I'm here. I hope they're listening to me.
So I'm asking you if the people of Tennessee are too dumb to realize that they're being snowed
I'm not saying the people of Tennessee are too dumb. No, I think they only get one side of the story, and that's why we exist as the holler, to try to shed some light on what's really going on in Tennessee.
What parts of the story are they not getting?
I just told you.
With regard to,
okay,
let's set the education piece aside.
Thank you for asking. So we're at the bottom in poverty. We're at the bottom in infant maternal mortality. We're number one in medical bankruptcies. Mm-hmm. We're at the bottom in per pupil spending. We're at the top in violent crime.
Then why did you move here?
What do you mean, why did I move here?
Why did you move here if we're at the bottom of all of this?
I just explained. You're just going to keep asking me that?
No. Didn't you do your research before you moved to Tennessee?
Those issues are not. See, the difference I'm going to answer you.
Did they not exist before
I'd
you
like
moved
the audience to hear that you keep asking me questions and then interrupting me.
I'm not going to let you monologue.
The difference, you don't need to. The difference is that I don't only think about myself in Williamson County. Not every county is Williamson County. And when Governor Lee walks around this state talking about how great everybody's doing, talking about businesses, he's not thinking about everybody. He's not thinking about the impoverished places in the rural parts of the state. And so, yes, I'm not talking about Williamson County. Williamson County is doing great. If every county was Williamson County, we wouldn't be having these issues. But that's not the case. And so I don't only think about myself.
Right. How do you earn your living?
Through the holler.
You get paid through the Tennessee, through subscribe. How does that work?
I'm not here to talk about the holler's finances. How do you get paid? How much do you make?
No. I'm not asking you how much you make. I get paid through Cumulus Media and through my endorsement opportunities that as I broadcast from noon until 3 every day. So, no, I'm just asking.
The holler's model? You want me to tell you?
What is the business model?
The business model is, the business model is we started in 2019. We are user supported. So we just figured if we were useful enough.
Do you receive donations?
Yeah.
So do you receive political donations?
No,
do you receive donations from political entities?
People chip in to us.
Do you receive donations from political organizations? Yes or no?
Political organizations, no. There's small dollar
political
donations from people.
Political action committees, yes or no?
No.
So you don't receive from any political organization?
Well, political action committees. We get money from various people throughout the state. I'm not here to talk about the finances.
I'm not
We're
accusing.
an LLC. We don't have to
Justin, you
disclose
don't have
our
to get
money.
defensive. I'm not
defensive.
No,
I'm just
well,
I'm not here to talk about the Hollers' finances with you.
Well, then what-
just like
we're-
you're not here to
we're-
talk about Cumulus Media's donations.
I'm happy to talk about.
You don't even
Cumulus
know
Media.
it. So what are we talking
We're
about?
a for-profit organization.
So are we.
Justin. Right. Right. So I'm just asking you how you earn your money. You don't have to get defensive.
I'm just
it's
telling
okay,
you.
man.
That's how we get our money.
It's
from
all right. Well,
users
we'll take a
throughout the
time out.
state.
We'll let you calm down
Sure.
for a minute because
I'm
you're getting
plenty calm.
you're getting
Matt.
excited because
you telling me I'm not calm doesn't make me not calm, buddy.
Justin Kanew is with us. It's 121 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Quick time out. We're going to earn a few bucks, and we'll be back with Justin after this. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Justin Kanew is the proprietor of the Tennessee Holler. He's in studio with us as invited by me. It's 124. We'll have a few more moments of good conversation before we get to the bottom of the hour, and then hopefully Justin will stick around for a little while longer. You mentioned the issues that are of such importance to you and part of your kind of mission with the Tennessee Holler, and I want to revert back to that. You talked about education. And you said that Tennessee is at the bottom in spending per pupil.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at the bottom in terms of educational metrics?
I think it depends which, but I think we're towards the bottom. I don't think we're at the very bottom.
I think the last right. I was somewhere in the middle. And why do you think there's that disparity between spending versus outcomes? I mean, we seem to be getting better outcomes versus spending. Based on your numbers?
I think there's a lot of reasons, but generally speaking, my feeling about education is that it's linked to poverty, it's linked to inequality. Your zip code definitely does dictate a lot of what your outcomes are. So, again, I don't think spending money is the end all be all, but I don't think taking money away is going to take us in the right direction.
Don't we spend? You're saying that. So in Williamson County, where your kids go to school,
yeah.
Versus, for example, the Metro Nashville school system.
Yeah.
The spending is different? It's out of whack?
Well,
Or is the spending the same?
In a place like Williamson County, where property taxes are high, where you have more of a pool to draw from, where you have wealthy parents that are able to facilitate and supplement what's going on at the schools and be involved, outcomes are better.
So you're blaming the inner city school parents?
No, I'm saying that when you have resources, then you're able to put more into the outcomes.
What I'm asking is if we spend as a state the same amount in the Metro Nashville school system as we do in Williamson County.
If we spend the same as a state? No, I think the
per pupil spending, is it the same?
Yeah, I think it's the same, yeah.
Right. Then why are the outcomes different?
I just explained it to you.
Right. So it's parental involvement. So it has nothing to do with money.
It's resources.
It has nothing to do with money.
No, it's resources in those communities in many ways. Yes, absolutely.
Resources that you think need to be going into the schools?
This is a complicated, complex topic, but when you have parents that have, when parents are able to stay home and work from home, they can be more involved. So it's about parental involvement. A lot of it's about parental involvement. A lot of it's about property taxes, that money goes to these schools from property taxes and the counties that they're in. So you're saying that
the property taxes in Nashville are too low? They just went up. John Cooper, if it's about property tax, I'm just trying to figure out why there's a gap between the outcomes on education in Williamson County and Nashville when the money's the same.
The pool that you're drawing from in Williamson County is a much wealthier pool. And so, generally speaking, the outcomes...
The pool of what? The amount of money per pupil spending is the same, Justin.
No,
that's what
counties
that's the
put
point.
Money in also.
Well,
what are you talking about?
We were talking
you're
about
missing the entire. You're missing the
we're
entire
talking about
point.
State funding. So you think the state should take over county funding now? The state should dictate to counties
You're
how they spend
words
money?
in my mouth.
No,
Matt.
I'm asking the question.
What I'm saying is that yes, state funding may be the same from place to place, but there are other factors.
Thank you for agreeing with my point that I made 5 minutes ago, dude.
There are
the
other
state
factors.
Funding is the same.
You're patting yourself on the back for a point that I don't even understand what you're making. Other factors go into what these schools get. Other factors go into the resources that these schools have, not just what the state puts in.
What resources does the Metro Nashville school system need besides money?
Okay, well,
that would improve outcomes according to you.
What does the Metro Nashville schools need? I think that it's a complicated topic. It has a lot to do with, like I said, inequality in the area, and I think that taking money away from these schools is not going to help them. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that putting money in is the magic bullet.
That's not the question I asked you. And so I'll ask you again.
It's the answer I'm giving you.
That's not the question I asked you. Okay. And I'm asking the question.
Sure.
So I'll ask the question again.
Yes.
Considering that the state contribution to these localities is the same, the amount of money is the same, I'm asking you why, outside of considering that those resources are the same, why the outcomes are different in your estimation.
I just explained it to you. That's not the only factor that goes into what these schools get. These schools get resources from other parts of the tax base. They have other factors in the community. So it's not just about state input.
The Metro Nashville school system needs to demand more money from Davidson County.
From Davidson County?
If it's about money, you keep going back to money. I'm trying to figure out if there's reasons beyond money. You said parental involvement.
No, I think the fight about money is because what's happening with the money in the state is that people are draining state resources away from the schools. And I'm not saying that the schools will magically be fixed if we don't do that. But I do know that taking money away from already underfunded public schools is not a recipe for success.
You're talking about the possibility of the voucher program that they're considering.
I'm talking about vouchers.
I'm talking about
federal education funding.
I'm talking about right now, as it exists right now. The outcomes are far worse in Davidson County than they are in Williamson County. And I'm trying to figure out if you have a reason inside your mind why that is right now, not moving down the road right now.
For the fourth time, I think that in Williamson County...
You still haven't answered it
yes,
for the
fourth
time.
In Williamson County, it's the wealthiest county in Tennessee. And so when you have a wealthy...
I said beyond money, beyond...
But that's a big part of the reason. So why beyond money?
But I've asked
What's
you...
your reason?
No.
What do you think the answer is?
Parental involvement, having a father in the home, that's my answer.
But you are able to have parental involvement when you have money.
I'm talking to you about...
Why do you think
money.
Certain communities don't have parental involvement?
No.
I'm asking you.
Because you have parents having children out of wedlock or without a father within the home, or the father leaves the home, and so you have a single mother having to deal with it on
in certain
her own.
communities?
Of course, in certain communities.
Which kind of communities?
I'm sure they're in Williamson County. They're in Davidson County. I'm sure they're in Murray County.
Which kind of communities?
They're in poor rural communities.
Thank you. Poorer? Is that what you said? Poorer?
Rural
What does poorer mean?
Yeah, but
what does poorer mean, Matt? Does that mean less money?
No, I grew up
Does poorer mean less money?
Hold on, Justin.
Does poorer mean less money, Matt? I think it means less money, which is what I've been saying this whole time. So you just parroted my answer back to me and are telling me that mine isn't an answer.
No, I didn't. I'm telling you that parental involvement is
But why do people
important
have more
within
parental
the
involvement?
educational system.
And at the root of parental involvement is resources.
So you're saying richer parents have more time or energy, or
is that mind-boggling to you?
They have more inclination.
No, they have more time and energy and money
that's
and
about
resources.
the parents. So why is it the government's job to give those parents money? Is that the government's job to give money to those parents to make sure?
Now you're taking this into a whole different direction.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not saying
I'm
it's
taking
the
it into
government's
the socialism
job.
direction because you're a socialist.
I
right?
am not a socialist.
Hang on,
I'm going to answer your question. I don't think it's the government's job to give these parents money.
That's nice.
But I do think it's the government's job to provide public schools for our kids.
Okay. And they do that equitably.
Right. Equitably and not steer private school.
Oh, so you agree with me that the government is providing equitable school systems across the state of Tennessee?
I think we need to fight for it.
Thank you. It's 1:32.
I think Republican leadership is trying to keep that from happening.
You got to take a quick time out. I'll give you a chance to finish up on the other side.
Okay,
Justin Kanew, Justin Kanew, you want another opportunity to talk about other things, right?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I've got to take a break. Got to pay the bills. We're a for-profit organization.
Do your thing, Matt.
132 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You Efficient Heating and Cooling is a great company that I highly and heartily recommend. Jeff Eddy has been doing his business for a long, long time. Not the biggest heating and air conditioning company in Nashville, Tennessee, simply the best. Efficient Heating and Cooling is a smaller company with big service and big results in their minds. I trust them in my home, and I know that you can trust them in yours. Maintenance fees will never exceed $125. That is a commitment that they provide to you at Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling, meaning no matter how many units you have, they'll come out. Oftentimes, the price point is much less than $125, but that is how they max out at that price point, despite the number of units you might have on your property. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and also an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net is the website, EfficientHVAC.net, and here's the telephone number, 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Interesting conversation with Justin Kanew ongoing. He is the proprietor of the Tennessee Holler, and we appreciate him stopping by with us, invited, and he agreed to come. I want to back up for a minute because you and I are getting very heated and argumentative about very particular issues, and I think that's all well and good. People who disagree from a political perspective, does that, in your mind, that doesn't necessarily make them bad people?
Of course not.
Is that fair?
Of course not. I disagree with most of the people in my life on a lot of things.
But you and the Tennessee Holler propagated a response to the Tennessee Three, the Joneses and Gloria Johnson, that was bathed in racial rhetoric. Do you believe that the supermajority in the Tennessee legislature is racist?
Oh, I think they have a lot of racist tendencies, absolutely. I mean, from defending the KKK Grand Wizard bus that was in the Capitol for so long to the racist comments that were made by Judge Carter and another member of leadership calling somebody in the Democrats baboons, to the expulsion of 2 young black dams. Do I think they know they're racist and it's like intentional? That might be debatable, but do they do racist things and have they shown themselves to be racist in many ways? Absolutely.
But the House of Representatives has to have rules, right?
Sure.
So what would you have done were you in charge and you had members of the body violating the rules of the body as voted on by the members and in a de facto way as voted on by the people of the state of Tennessee?
Well, first of all, the rules were voted on by the supermajority.
The rules, and who elected the supermajority?
I'm going to
Justin?
answer your
Come
question.
on, man. Who elected the supermajority?
I'm going to answer your question.
Don't spin. Who elected the supermajority? Tell me that, and then I'll let you finish.
I'm going to answer your question.
Who elected the supermajority? Tell me that, and I'll let you finish.
So
the people of the state of Tennessee. I'll answer
back up,
which you won't.
To back up,
the people elected those representatives.
What was going on that day was 6 people had been murdered in a school, and it was business as usual at the Capitol. Despite that, there were thousands of people at the Capitol.
No, it wasn't.
Calling for something to answer.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. I was there.
It was not business
You
as
were not
usual.
there. I was there.
No, Justin.
Yes, it was. Absolutely, it was.
Hold on a second.
And so,
who elected?
Thousands of people.
Who elected the supermajority in the Tennessee legislature?
Did.
The state of Tennessee.
Yeah. So that means they can do whatever they want?
No.
Who elected Joe Biden?
No.
Does that mean he can do whatever he wants?
How would
no,
you?
That's not how that works.
How would you make the rules then? If you don't vote on it and the majority wins, how do you make the rules?
The rules that are being made by this Republican supermajority are beneficial to them. They are fascist in nature.
Then who is supposed to make the rules, dude?
Listen, I'm going to answer your question if you will let me.
Who is supposed to make the rules if not by a simple majority of the body?
The rule that they just made was basically Cameron Sexton gets to silence whoever he wants, gets to kick out whoever he wants, and gets to expel whoever he wants.
Then how would you have them make the rules?
I would have them make it a lot more fair than that. And then we can have a different discussion.
Then how do we vote on the rules?
I'm answering you.
How are those rules determined?
You don't seem to want my answer.
How are those rules determined?
No,
I'm trying to get.
Answer. I'm not talking about the rules.
You don't want to say what you know the conclusion is.
No, the conclusion is that
does the majority win?
The only 3 people that were doing what the people were asking them to do that day, all across Tennessee.
What people?
The majority of this state that wanted change on these gun laws.
That's garbage.
The majority of this state.
Then why don't they elect Democrats? The majority of the people elected those individuals in the supermajority that made the rules.
And I'll tell you, if you want me to answer your question, I will. They showed up. And by the way, sure, they broke a rule. Could they be censured? Sure. Expulsion is something that has only happened a few times in our history, and now it happened recently to 2 young black Democrats standing up for gun safety laws, which thousands of people were there that day pushing them to do.
What should have been the consequence?
That's a debate for, censure, whatever. I don't know what it should have been.
So you agree that they broke the rules?
I think
they should have been censured.
They knew when they were doing that they were breaking the rules and that something was going to happen, and they thought it was worth it. And I have talked to them since. They knew that was coming. They did not expect to be expelled.
So they did it intentionally?
Of course they did it intentionally.
They broke the rules intentionally?
Of course they did, yes.
Uh-huh.
And
they knew that expulsion was a possibility?
I don't think they thought expulsion was a possibility.
Did they not read it?
Read what?
The rules. The rules state
the
that
rules don't
expulsion
say that if you cause a disturbance, you get expelled. There have been others that have caused disturbances at the legislature that did not get expelled. Why wasn't Gloria expelled then?
Was expulsion a possibility?
A possibility? Expulsion's always a possibility.
Because Jody Barrett decided that her excuse was good enough.
Expulsion is always a possibility. Anytime, for anything.
So they broke the rules intentionally, knowing that expulsion was a possibility.
Expulsion's always a possibility.
Well, then why didn't
they expel David Byrd? See, it's very selective. And that's the point, that they only chose to do it for these two young black Democrats that were standing up for what most of the state thought was the right thing to do that day.
Right, and you're suggesting that they did that only because they were black?
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I do think racism comes into it.
Then why are you bringing up the color of their skin? Why do you see color?
It's a fact.
Why do you see color, Justin?
Because everybody sees color. You do too. You're just lying if you say you don't.
Okay.
It's just a fact.
I'm just asking the question.
People who are saying to be colorblind are not saying to not see color. They're saying to see color and love them anyway. That's the point.
I love all people.
Great.
I love all God's
but you
children.
do see color. You know those are two black men. So saying you don't see color is just not true.
Right. So, but you bring up the color of their skin for no reason because you accept the fact that they were not
a white man. There's no reason. To them, two young black men, there's plenty of reason.
I'm a white man now?
You are, yes.
Am I?
Are you not? You look like one.
Am I?
I don't know. Do
you know? Now you're making assumptions.
Yes, I am.
Now you're being racist.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Because I called a white man, I'm being racist.
That's fabulous. That's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you believe in rules. You think that there should be rules in the Tennessee legislature.
Sure.
All right. And who votes on those rules?
The legislature.
The legislature. And majority wins, right?
Yes. I'm not saying that they can't do what they did. I am saying that the rules that they made are selectively enforced, and they seem to only apply to certain people in the legislature.
Right. So you believe that...
That doesn't sound like democracy to me.
I'm sorry. Who else brought a bullhorn besides Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson to the floor of the House of Representatives?
Well, Jones was the only one who brought the bullhorn, and he brought the bullhorn because he knew his mic was going to get cut, and he had something to say.
And he knew that he was violating the rules.
Of course he did.
Right. So he should accept his punishment.
He did accept his punishment. And then he got sent back by the people that sent him there to do exactly what he did.
And he got sworn back into office.
That's right. And he's back there now.
But isn't that how democracy looks like?
Yeah, that is how democracy looks like. But that doesn't make expelling them okay.
So
that means people stood up for them.
So I'm glad you agreed that there should be rules.
Yeah.
You agree that they knowingly violated the rules.
Yes.
And you agree that expulsion was an acceptable form of punishment per
Absolutely
the
not.
rules.
Absolutely not.
Per the rules.
No, I don't.
It was in the rules. How can you disagree
There's a
with
lot of things that are in the rules that I don't agree are acceptable.
It was,
like, for instance, voice votes.
An acceptable
do you support
form of
voice votes? Voice votes are ridiculous.
Rules.
Voice votes, you got chairs of committees sitting there deciding which side wins, even though they don't raise their hands. And I've seen it go many times against the majority. So there are plenty of things that are in the rules that are not democratic. So just them being in the rules does not by nature make them acceptable and democratic.
The rules that are set forth by the elected body, a body elected by the people of the state of Tennessee and voted on by that same body, that's not a democratic process.
Are you saying there are no rules in this country that you disagree with?
That was a question I just asked.
Are you saying...
you answer mine and I'll answer yours.
Are you the same person?
I disagree with plenty of the rules.
Did Biden win the election?
I'm asking you. Biden is president of the United States of America.
Did he win the election?
Yes, unfairly.
Unfairly? Why do you say unfairly?
Yeah.
I'm using your exact logic against you here.
And I'll tell
unfairly
you
why, Matt? It's in the rules. The judges upheld it.
Because the House of Representatives of the state of Pennsylvania voted on election rules that were violated by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court against the Constitution.
According to you. Not according to any of the lawsuits that came after it.
Now who doesn't want the answer to the question?
I'm just telling you. You're saying that you don't like the rules when they apply to certain things that you do. And you have a right to feel that way.
I'm just answering your question.
You have a right to feel that way.
Right.
Just like I have a right to feel this way about the rules in Tennessee.
You believe the expulsion rule, which was voted on democratically by the House of Representatives, was unfair?
Yeah, it's applied selectively. Absolutely, it was unfair.
Although there's only one group of people that brought a bullhorn, which is why
didn't they expel David Byrd?
Why they were expelled?
Why didn't they expel David Byrd?
No idea.
David Byrd admitted on tape to doing horrible things. Why didn't they expel him?
I have no idea.
Right.
I have no idea.
Because it's selectively applied. They didn't even investigate it.
Did he take a bullhorn down to the floor of the
So
House
you're
of
saying there's only one rule that can be expulsion worthy?
No, I'm talking specifically about the Tennessee 3.
So am I. I'm saying it's selectively applied.
You're trying to change
That's my issue with the rule. It's selectively applied.
admitted
I am
that
talking about the rule. It's selectively applied.
You admitted that they violated the rules.
Yes, they did.
You admitted that a form of punishment under the rules was expulsion, and you just don't like the fact that those rules got applied to those individuals.
Correct.
And you suggest on this radio program that the color of their skin had something to do with it, although when pressed on that matter, you cannot tell me how or why.
I absolutely can tell you how and why. You have two young black men getting expelled from the legislature for the first time in a very long time, and the white woman didn't. And yes, it looks to a lot of people like they were racial expelled.
She should have been expelled.
Okay, that's fine. But if you put it in context of keeping that Klan Grand Wizard bust in the Capitol, the racist comments that have been made even by members of leadership, yes, you start to add up that if you were in different skin, I'm just speaking for myself here.
Wait.
I'm speaking for myself here.
When did that bust get removed?
2 years ago.
Was it?
3 years ago.
It hadn't been here since I've been here.
Okay, well, they fought pretty hard for it, and both the Republican leader of the Senate and Republican leader of the House voted against removing it, and that bust was hurting a lot of people. So, yes, there are things over time here that have felt very racist.
I think you're hurting far more people than that bust ever did.
I am?
Yeah.
How am I doing that?
By your racial rhetoric and the racial divisiveness.
My racial rhetoric?
Yeah.
But you're not willing.
You have no evidence that any of this had anything to do with the color of their skin, yet you bring it up repeatedly on this radio show.
I am. First of all, you asked me the question. You asked me the question. I didn't come here saying
about my personal ethnicity.
I didn't come here saying.
I mean, come on,
racist. You asked me if I thought it had something to do with it. If I thought the Tennessee legislature.
And you offer no evidence.
I've offered you 10 things, as anybody who's listening to this knows. There's a reason. There's a history of instances of racist rhetoric in the legislature, and if you are a young black man who is a representative there and you get expelled, it's hard to ignore the context that is happening in. So yes, I do think that plays a part in it. Now, do I think everybody in the legislature is openly racist and horrible? No, that's not what I'm saying. I think at times there's a blind spot for racism, and I think they need to open their eyes to it, and denying it.
Do you think black people can be racist?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking. How many genders do you think there
are? Here we go. Yeah, I expected you to talk about the trans stuff. How many genders do I think there are? I think there's male, female, and men and women, and I think there's that if trans women are real also, and trans men are too.
So how many is that?
I mean, however many you want to count, Matt. I'm not going to sit here and...
No, I'm asking you. How many genders are there?
I think there's men and women.
So 2?
Sure.
Okay, good. We're getting somewhere. Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Yes.
Do you believe that being pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas prior to the release of hostages?
No, I don't.
Tell me how.
Well, this is a topic that I haven't really talked about much. And just to give the context, my grandparents survived Auschwitz. I have family in Israel. I was bar mitzvahed in an Orthodox temple. What Hamas did was horrific, inexcusable, and... You know, I weep for the people of Israel. I weep for the hostages that have been taken. And yes, I think Hamas is inexcusable. I am seeing the bombs drop every single day. I'm seeing the babies pulled from rubble every single day. And I don't think that giving Hamas what they wanted, which was exactly this response, is making the people of Israel safer and making the people of Palestine safer. So I completely understand the calls for ceasefire. I completely understand the rabbis and Jews that are out there calling for the bombs to stop dropping. I think it's a very difficult situation. It's a difficult one for Biden to be in. But also, Bibi Netanyahu is a very right-wing militaristic leader. And so to pledge unending loyalty to a man like that, I think is somewhat irresponsible, and saying that there are no red lines is irresponsible. So it's a difficult one. I am torn about it. I've had trouble talking to my family and friends about it. This is actually the first time publicly I've said anything about it. But yes, my heart is with the bombs to stop dropping and to stop these kids from dying.
Well, I mean, I would love for that to be the case too, but you have to root out those terrorist individuals with evil in their heart that committed these atrocities against the people of Israel.
I understand that, but and I'm having not a casual, but like a calm conversation. I think it's a difficult topic.
I understand.
What I would say to that is, I don't know that what they're doing right now is rooting out Hamas. I think they might be making Hamas stronger. And if what we want is peace at the end of the day, I think the sooner the bombs start dropping and the sooner we start talking about a two-state solution and living in peace, the better. So, yes, if I could snap my fingers hang on, let me just finish that. If I could snap my fingers and have Hamas disappear, I would do it. But I don't necessarily think that's what's going on there. And at the end of the day, I think just like we turned ISIS loose when we invaded Iraq, they might be making Hamas stronger with what they're doing right now.
Okay, I would like peace amongst peaceful, mindful people.
Yes, which many Palestinians are.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I would like the Israelis to root out the murderous, terroristic bastards that killed innocent Jews.
Would I.
And the only way to do that is to get to the tunnels where they are.
Yeah, I mean, you say that.
The tunnels are under the hospitals.
You're just saying that. I mean, tunnels under
it's
hang
true.
On, but what I will say about that is the tunnels under the hospitals and human shields thing, can be used to excuse literally any act. And if you're watching on social media, not these curated places, you're seeing that refugee camps are being blown up, ambulances are being blown up. In Lebanon, they just bombed a family with girls and a daughter, and a grandmother. So Israel is not completely innocent here, and that's not all they're doing is just rooting out these tunnels. So again, I don't think we are getting closer to making everybody safer by continuing to drop these bombs. And like John Oliver said this week, at some point you're going to have to stop dropping bombs, and at that point Hamas may regroup. But why not start now before we kill more kids? Thousands of kids are dying, Matt. And yes, my heart is in those kids stopping dying.
On killing the murderous bastards.
So do I, but that's an easy answer. So do I, but that's an easy answer, and that's not what happened.
Well, what a ceasefire
not what's happening.
What ceasefire would do would get
I get the logic behind what you're saying.
We can have an earnest discussion,
but that's not necessarily what's happening.
I think it's an important discussion
for
people of different mindsets to have on this issue. And I hope that you come back and have a further discussion with us. We've spent an hour with a robust disagreement on a number of topics. Justin,
thank you for happening.
I enjoyed it.
I hope your audience will follow the holler and maybe let a little bit of a different opinion in. And I appreciate you having me on here. And, I think we have more in common than we realize.
Well, we barely touched the surface and I appreciate you talking about this issue. I didn't know your background on the issue. We barely touched the surface on transgender-based issues and so many of the other things. I'm not afraid of that conversation with somebody that disagrees from a different point of view. Well, let's do it again.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
There's Justin Kanew of the Tennessee Holler. Back in a moment. It's 53 after the hour.
That's the first.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 67 degrees, partly cloudy in Music City. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Some new numbers from the Labor Department show inflation continued to slow in last month. Derek Dennis.
A key barometer of inflation, the Consumer Price Index, shows prices up a modest 3.2% in October compared to a year ago. That's lower than analysts' expectations and an improvement from the rate we saw in September. It's also a lot better than the 9% peak inflation the country saw in June of 2022. What's helping? The Fed's steady stream of interest rate hikes over the last year and a half, helping to lower consumer prices on everything from used cars to airfares to hotel stays. Gas prices also dropping as we head into the holidays.
Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 reports that a Murfreesboro mother is now in custody after a pit bull attacked her daughter. Candy Tittle's child was unsupervised, was attacked on Richland Richardson Road, and the daughter began screaming. The owner of that dog was contacted. Emergency officials were notified. She had injuries to her arm and her trachea. Tittle showed up to the hospital much after and was, quote, noticeably under the influence. Tittle's child's no longer in her custody. Her bond has been set at $120,000. And there's now a timeline for how long Interstate 10 in Los Angeles will be closed after a weekend fire damaged a 6 football field section of one of America's most congested freeways. Over 300,000 people use it every day. Alex Stone.
Until now, nobody knew if the 1-mile stretch of elevated freeway would have to be torn down and rebuilt or if it could just be repaired. Engineers are waiting on testing to be completed on concrete and rebar samples. Governor Gavin Newsom announcing it has been determined the section can be repaired. It does not have to be torn down, and the fix will take 3 to 5 weeks.
Relatively good news considering the alternative, a full demo, which would have been many months.
But it also means that one of the most used freeways in the country will be shut down for the next month or so.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hour number 3 starts right now. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 2:05. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well on this Tuesday, November 14. We've had a couple of lively hours on the show. And I thank you for whatever time you're able to be there. I understand aggressive interviews like we just had aren't for everyone. I get it. I allow myself to get as aggressive in nature as I need to be, and for some that's a little too much, and I understand that, and I fully expect that we'll get some of that clap back. Outside of that, hope you enjoyed the conversation. Frankly, it's important to understand that there are folks like Justin in our community in Tennessee, and they want to functionally and fundamentally change how our government's run in the state of Tennessee, and I'm glad he was willing to just spend an hour with us, and frankly, hope he comes back. 615-737-9986 if you have a thought or a comment. Jack Johnson is on the way over. Senator Johnson will be along in a couple of minutes to give a response to some of the comments. You have the Sexton clip. Make sure that we have that when Jack gets around.
Yeah. Just to let you know, Sapicki called twice while you were doing that interview. I couldn't talk him into going on.
Well, I find it interesting. A couple of things, just some cleanup notes. Kanew brought up the bust that was in the state capitol. Now, that bust, I was aware of that because I was aware of the story when I was down in Alabama, but it predated me, so I can't really speak to any of the details on it. But several of you have noted that the bust was donated. I think the Alabama Democrat Party donated it. Like Nathan Bedford Forrest was a Democrat, and in 1977 or 78, the bust was donated, and the Democrats were all in charge then.
I think I could be wrong on this, but I think the Memphis NAACP had something to do with it too, because they held him up as an example of a changed man.
Yes, I mean, if we wanted to get into the life of Nathan Bedford Forrest, there were several speeches that he gave later on in his life where he expressed several levels of regret as to how he conducted himself post the Civil War. Yeah, I just your thoughts on that conversation. You're certainly invited to be a part of the conversation at 615-737-9986. Mike is in Cookeville. He's been holding quite a bit of time. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, I just came out of, thought this has been important information for folks out of one of our large retailers, and was approached in the parking lot from a lady, and her comments were, she had a clipboard. She said, we are getting signatures on a petition to try to make it easier for third-party candidates to get on the ballot. She wouldn't answer what ballot, but she was approaching 99% seniors. They were giving her name, phone number, and then signing her petition. She said she was out of Texas, and when I tried to inquire who she was working for, you know, what they were going to use the signatures for, and who, she was evasive and was trying to walk off. I kept following her, trying to get information, and she would not give any of that information. But I was alarmed that many seniors were freely giving their information to somebody that, don't we already have a system that third-party candidates can get on the ballot?
I think you have to get signatures to get on the ballot in Tennessee as a third party. I know that you do in Alabama. I have not researched third-party the third-party access in the state of Tennessee enough to be able to adequately answer that question. But I think, Mike, in most states, in order to gain access to the ballot as a third party, that you have to have a certain amount of signatories or petition signatures to allow you ballot access.
Maybe I'm just so paranoid with the last election on what you do with that information that I don't like when somebody stops me and asks me for all that personal information when election's coming up.
Well, I mean, you certainly don't have to give it. What information did you say that they were asking for, though?
Name, address, phone number, and if you were willing, an email.
Okay. I believe I'm getting told on the super text line, Mike, that the No Labels Party which is a nationally organized effort to get a third-party candidate on the ballot in every state in the union. This is the party that it has been suggested is looking at Joe Manchin as a potential candidate to run as a presidential candidate. It's my understanding that they are getting petitions around Tennessee. So they're asking, and another super texter said they're asking for those signatures all over Murfreesboro, specifically Planet Fitness, parking lot, et cetera. So apparently this is a legit third-party deal that's going on.
And what was the name of the third party?
No Labels Party.
No Labels.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the information.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I understand your concern. I mean, I don't answer questions from most anybody that is of an unsolicited nature. At least I try not to. Lindsay is next up in Pleasant Shade. Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm all right. I heard that last interview, and I think it was the best thing since sliced bread. I wanted to tell you have indefinitely testicular fortitude, and you kept it civil. And I wish I could have that sort of debates with a few of my family members that have opposite views of me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I kept it as civil as I wanted to, but at the same time, I feel it necessary when I think that someone like Justin is mischaracterizing an answer or mischaracterizing something embedded in the answer, or perhaps is not answering the question asked. I feel compelled to stop him or interrupt him.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know.
Well, you didn't let him off the hook. No, you didn't let him get away with just skirting around the issues. And look, my mother is probably right up his alley. She probably reads his magazine, but I can't talk to her about these things. My brother, bless his heart, he's gone now, but we could, and he was up a very liberal alley also, but we would get into a screaming match. I couldn't regroup the way you did. So I wanted to tell you I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. It was an interesting conversation, probably cringy for some people, and I've gotten some of that on the super text line. I understand that. These are uncomfortable conversations that we're having, but I think important to hold people like Kanew up to the same standard that they suggest they're trying to hold up the supermajority to. What I don't for the life of me understand is, and we never really got to the bottom of it, what exactly they wanted to happen in the Tennessee legislature that didn't. I mean, I guess his answer was that he thought expulsion was too much, that censure would have been enough. Those were the only two options, according to the rules, expulsion or censure. And censure is not really doing anything but wagging your finger at someone. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number. Gary is next up. Hey, Gary, how are you?
Just fine. How are you doing, Mac?
I'm good, Gary.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick on that bust of Forrest, two things. One, 95% of any of the Confederate statues are donated money, primarily from citizens. So it's not even really money that's being taken from taxpayers. Obviously, the Alabama legislature did something different. But General Forrest, first off, there were black soldiers in the Confederate armies, all three of them. And they were paid the same pay as a white soldier, and they rose up in rank as the white soldiers in the enlisted ranks. They were integrated into the units, and Forrest had in his escort, being a general, you have an escort of troopers. He had former slaves of his operation, plantation operation, in his escort. So that's clear, clean history and real authentic background. And Forrest was even praised his troopers after the war, and they had congenial relationships with him, and one in particular had stayed with him after the war.
Well, Gary, it's good info, and I apologize that I can't really spend the time to go down the road any further in the historical vein because we've got so much going on today with regard to things that are happening today. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I appreciate the information. My purpose was not to relitigate Nathan Bedford Forrest or to discuss the history of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Kanew brought up the bust that predated me that was put there by a Democrat majority in the 1970s and removed by Republicans in the 2000s. That's all I can tell you. And it was done so because it was not believed that it fully reflected the sensibilities or values of all Tennesseans. I think I'm fairly accounting for the history of why it was removed from the state capitol. I understand that it was controversial. I don't think it is of any consequence. I don't think that bust has, in and of itself, hurt a single soul. Now, maybe some souls are delicate to the subject matters that come up as a result of discussing that bust, and for that reason, they made the determination to remove it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. At least not today. We have other things to discuss with Senator Jack Johnson, who joins us in studio next. It's 2:16 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here. You know, when you're not listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN, maybe in your downtime, whatever your schedule might be, if you avail yourself of podcasts, I encourage you to look up the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. Steve Abramowitz does a great job. He's down in Franklin, and he covers Franklin like the morning dew. I mean, really, there's nobody else that covers those local political matters better than Steve. But he also covers statewide matters, of course, and matters of international and national import as well. It's not just about politics, although they're frequently the number one show in politics on Podomatic. They're on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, all of your favorite podcast platforms, Rumble Video as well. And I encourage you to go in not just for the political nature of some of the conversations, but also the entertainment, the sports, the cultural touchstones that they talk to on a regular basis, authors and artists. It's all right there at Mill Creek View. And I encourage you to stop by. millcreekview.us is the website if you want to, pardon me, let me get it right, mcview.us. MC, that stands for Mill Creek, View.us for more information. There's a full publication there, including the podcast section. Steve is CEO and editor-in-chief of the Mill Creek View newspaper. Go by and say hello to them. And when you do, tell them I sent you their way to the Mill Creek View publication, mcview.us.
A rally for Israel in the nation's capital, some crime in Tennessee, plus a court case in Colorado. That and more. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. Looking forward to that. 222 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Looking forward to this conversation as well. Always good to catch up with Senator Jack Johnson. He is not only a representative from down in Williamson County, or senator, I should say, from Williamson County. He's also the Senate Majority Leader, and he joins us to talk about discussion points that have come about as a result of just a sincerely tragic situation, as we have much discussed. The death of Jillian Ludwig, a Belmont University student, believed to be at the hands of an individual who, by all accounts, should have been behind bars or in a psychiatric hospital somewhere, but was neither. He was out, was released by the district attorney, Glenn Funk, as a result of what Funk says was, his hands were tied in how much he could go or where he could go and what he could pursue. That was kind of the genesis of the conversation about what, if anything, more we could do or could have done to make sure that Shaquille Taylor did not fall through what is perceived as a loophole. And I know some are suggesting that it's not quite a loophole. To speak to all of these matters and so much more, we welcome back Senator Jack Johnson to the program. Jack, how are you?
I'm great, Matt. Good to be with you again.
Been lively.
So I hear.
I just go. Jack was like, was he sitting here? No, you did. It was a joke. Let's start with the Belmont University story. It's obvious that, everyone looks at this and wonders how in the world could this happen, especially when you start learning some of the background, that Shaquille Taylor was arrested in 2021. It was a slow walk through trying to get to justice for the individuals that he was accused of assaulting with a deadly weapon. Eventually, a 3-judge panel determined that he was unable to stand trial. And according to the district attorney, because he was also not deemed to be incompetent to the point that he could be involuntarily incarcerated, Funk says, I had to let him go. Subsequently, we've had conversations about what, if anything, the General Assembly can do to repair what seems to be a gap in the law there. Just speak to it. Obviously, you heard about it as we did, and I know your heart goes out to the family involved.
Absolutely, and our heart breaks for the family of Julian, and what a tragic situation for her to lose her life in that manner, just walking down a sidewalk and to be struck by a stray bullet. It's a horrible situation. I have kids that are roughly that age, a little bit older, and they're at college, and I can't imagine getting that phone call as a parent. So certainly we pray for the family. And it's a horrific situation. And it is one of those situations that makes us as policymakers decide to take a look, because there are a lot of questions. Why was this individual? And sadly, this happens a lot when we find someone who commits a horrible crime, and then we find out that they've got a lengthy criminal record. And you wonder why in the world, if they were arrested and charged with so many previous crimes, some of them violent crimes, as is the case with this particular individual, who fired the weapon, why are they out on the streets? And so our colleagues, my colleagues and myself are doing a deep dive into the statutes. I've been speaking with judges, district attorneys, mental health professionals to understand what we have in code right now. As you might imagine, these are very complex issues when we're talking about confining someone or committing someone involuntarily into some type of facility for treatment. That's a very serious matter and something that you really want a lot of stakeholder involvement in. The matter was introduced or was being discussed during the special session. I don't necessarily want to relitigate the Senate position, the Tennessee state position, during special session, but ours was that these are not matters to be taken up in a matter of 3 or 4 days. These are matters that take time, and we need to really do a deep dive with stakeholders to make sure we come up with the best public policy. But we are all committed to making sure that people who will commit these types of violent crimes are off of our streets, whether that's in jail or in a mental health facility if necessary.
We had the Speaker of the House on to discuss broadly what, if anything, the General Assembly could do about this, and what, if anything, had been proposed previous to Shaquille Taylor, the incident involving Jillian Ludwig and Shaquille Taylor. And I think we have the clip. Do you have the clip, Bell?
I do not. I'm sorry. Let me pull it up real quick.
Okay. I tell you what, just wait on it. I don't want to have to wait on you. So Cameron essentially said that he felt like the Senate could have done more during the special. He cited a bill, which we now know as HB 7036, which I understand never came to the floor of the House. But he cited that as an example of what could have been done and was fairly pointed in his commentary regarding the inaction of the Senate. It seemed to me that he was carrying over some frustration about a difference of opinion that the two bodies had. And I wanted you a chance to speak to that as Senate Majority Leader.
Well, and thank you for the opportunity. You know, our framers were brilliant in establishing a bicameral legislative system that I think all 50 states use, except for I think it's Nebraska has a unicameral legislature. But we have a Senate and we have a House, and there were different attitudes relative to the special session. As you recall, the Senate felt like governor called the special session. We would go in and address those matters that the governor wished to be considered. We appropriated an extraordinary amount of money towards mental health and mental health treatment and for mental health providers because we know we have a capacity issue that exists there. I do not believe that there's anything that could have been done during the special session that would have prevented this horrible tragedy. So I will take issue with my friend, Speaker Cameron Sexton, on that particular matter. I do think there are issues there that we need to look at, and we need to do a deep dive into our current laws relative to how these people are handled when they're deemed to be incompetent to stand trial and ultimately have committed violent acts and yet are released onto the street. And the reason I will reiterate, I disagree with Speaker Sexton on that. I don't think what he said is accurate, that there is something that we could have passed during special session. I'm not aware of any amendatory language. I'm the Senate Majority Leader. I'm not aware of any bill that was making its way through. I listened to his interview, and he said he was in discussions, I believe, with General Funk from here in Davidson County, but no language was ever presented to us to be considered. But if there is something there that we can do that will make the system better, then we should take it up in January and make sure that all stakeholders, there are 32 district attorneys in the state of Tennessee. There are 32 judicial districts. There are hundreds of judges that typically weigh in on these particular matters. And I'll also remind you that during that special session, all rules were suspended, notice requirements for legislation so that the public can know what is being considered. And that's not the time to be rushing through legislation that could potentially result in someone unfairly being committed to a mental health facility.
I'm not here to make enemies out of friends, but I want to ask you this. Did it surprise you when you were listening to the Speaker of the House? Because I don't feel like I was leading him toward a direction where he would point fingers at the Senate. It felt to me, and Cameron will have a fair opportunity to respond to some of the things we talk about today, but it felt to me that maybe some of his frustration with the differences of opinion were spilling over into this instance, but he didn't have anything specific necessarily to point to with regard to matters that you did not take up. Did it surprise you what he said on the show?
It did. It did surprise me because I think making an assertion that because of inaction on the part of the state Senate, the Tennessee State Senate, that someone died as a result of that inaction. That's a very severe accusation. It's a very serious accusation. And but Cameron is my friend. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I hope we can work together, both House and Senate, moving forward to make our community safer. But yes, and not only myself, but other members of my body, my chamber, I think were surprised by those comments.
Senator Majority Leader Jack Johnson's with us. We've got news to do right now. It's 2:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Stand by.
"31 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 67 degrees in Middle Tennessee. A full weather forecast in 2 minutes. A rally for Israel drew thousands of supporters today to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. The rally-goers called on the U.S. and Israel to do more to free the 240 hostages, including At least 9 Americans believed to be held by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Faith Abube is there.
There are parents here, there are students here, there are activists here. We're expecting lawmakers to take that stage and speak as well. And of course, people from all across the spectrum who are here, people who got on buses early this morning to travel from several states across the country. We've seen people here from Chicago, Oregon, Atlanta, Georgia, New Jersey, all over the place who are here because they say they want their voices heard.
And over 11,000 people have been killed since the start of that war. Crime in Tennessee. The suspect accused of shooting his wife and brother-in-law at a Franklin wedding last weekend is a Florida high school teacher. 29-year-old Cody Wiggins has now been suspended of his duties over there in Florida. The shooting happened at the Marriott of Cool Springs Saturday night around 9:30. Wiggins is still at the Williamson County Jail. And the man accused of killing 10 people at a Boulder, Colorado grocery store in 2021 has entered a plea in court. Alex Stone.
The trial against Ahmad Alyssa has been on hold for years because Alyssa has schizophrenia. He had been repeatedly ruled incompetent to stand trial, but after treatment, it's been declared he is now competent. In court on Tuesday, Alyssa entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. At a preliminary hearing, a detective described Alyssa moving through the King Soopers grocery store hunting his victims. Police still have not determined a motive. His trial has been scheduled for August of 2024.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief located in Franklin. If you have back pain, neck pain, any pain, right, I like to list them off because, you kind of rattle them off, back pain, neck pain, knee pain, all over your body. If you're experiencing pain in any form or fashion. It used to be that chiropractic care years and years ago was spinal in nature, and that was about it. But things have changed. Chiropractic care has expanded. Of course, they can still help you with your spine, but they also have so many more options to deal with some of that pain that you're experiencing, like their Class 5 laser system, their red light therapy, spinal decompression, all to pinpoint inflammation within the body, identify pain, reduce swelling, accelerate healing. That's what it's all about at the Dr. Gill Center. And to do so in a fashion that you don't have to worry about pills and you don't have to worry about needles and certainly not surgery. That's what it's all about. They've helped me. My lower back pain is virtually non-existent. My neck pain is non-existent. Thank you to Dr. Wendy and the rest of the team at the Dr. Gill Center. So if you want to experience a pain-free lifestyle, I encourage you to use this number and say pain relief with my name, Matt Murphy. That's 615-882-4838. 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. It is open enrollment in healthcare for many of you, and if you're experiencing that, if you pay for your own healthcare coverage, or if your employer's plan is simply too expensive, or if you're on Obamacare and you don't like it, whatever your reason for desiring to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable about these things, I have a name and I have a telephone number, and I want you to use it. His name is Pat Davis, and it is Your Health Plan Man and yourhealthplanman.com. Your health insurance is so important to you and your family, obviously. The health plan team at yourhealthplanman.com have over 25 years combined experience. They provide such great advice. I consider them concierge, if you will. They can provide you with a plan that is 30 to 60% lower in cost than Obamacare. They get to shop around from a variety of different companies. In other words, they're not bound by one company's plan or even two or even three. They have multiple companies that they look at. They find you the lowest possible plan and exactly what you're looking for. The monthly premiums are independent of your income, so there's no surprising tax bills. If you pay for your own health insurance, if you're uninsured, if you're on COBRA, or if your employer coverage is too expensive, call for a no-obligation consultation right now. 855-4PLAN-MAN, 855-475-2662, or go to yourhealthplanman.com. Yourhealthplanman.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jack Johnson's with us. He is Senate Majority Leader in studio responding to this tragic event that resulted in the death of Jillian Ludwig, a Belmont University student, believed to be at the hands of the alleged shooter, a man by the name of Shaquille Taylor, who was out of jail. He had multiple offenses against him on his record. The ones that we are focused on he was released from jail in April because of an inability to stand trial, according to a 3-doctor panel. Jack, are you familiar with how all of that works with regard to, and I know that this is weedy. I mean, it is as in the weeds as you can get, but I think it's very important that people understand how these things are determined. And I think there's a little confusion about they're independent of one another. There's one determination as to whether or not someone is competent to stand criminal trial, and there's another determination that is made as to whether or not someone is a danger to themselves or to other people, so much so that they need to be involuntarily incarcerated. Do I have that about right?
Yeah, I think that's a great assessment of it. And the frustrating thing is when you look at someone like this particular individual who has been charged, took a plea deal, I suppose, because he was on parole, and then he violated his parole, and he went to jail for a year. And it begs the question, how did that legal process take place, and yet he commit another crime or is charged with another crime and then be released? And so these are all, again, I think very, very fair questions. And the ultimate question is, if someone is deemed to be incompetent to stand trial and they are known to have violent tendencies, they have committed violent acts. To me, I think as a layperson, and I'm not an attorney, but these are the conversations we're having with our judges and our prosecutors, law enforcement, and so forth, is why does that not rise to the level of warranting involuntary confinement? And again, I respect that we need to be careful about involuntarily committing people. But for an individual like this who has been deemed to be incompetent to stand trial and we know has a violent history, it is inconceivable, I think, to a reasonable person that he just be released back out onto the streets.
So what, if anything, do you expect will come out of this from the General Assembly's standpoint?
So we're going to look at the process, and I also want your listeners to know that there have been other instances like this where an individual was determined to be incompetent to stand trial and yet had a violent history. They did the mental health evaluation, and even some stakeholders determined that this individual needed to be released, and yet the court insisted and, in fact, ordered committal, involuntary committal of the individual. So why is that happening in some jurisdictions and not others? Because that tells me that there are judges out there who interpret existing statute as giving you the levers of power, the tools necessary to be able to remove that person from society. And so I think we need to, it's our job as policymakers in the General Assembly to make sure that our judges, our DAs, law enforcement, mental health professionals have the tools they need in order to get these violent people off the streets. And that's what we're working towards, and I think we will have legislation to accomplish that when we reconvene in January.
And is it oversimplifying the situation to say that if someone is charged with violent, felonious acts and they are deemed to be incompetent to stand trial against those charges, that should trigger some mechanism by which they at least are automatically put through the process of determining whether or not they have the ability to be out amongst the general public? One would think that one would go hand in hand with the other. If you could not understand the difference between right and wrong and the charges against you, then necessarily you would not, I mean, it would be unsafe for you to be in the general public.
Exactly. And ultimately, in terms of these committals, and for an individual who has been being involuntarily committed, oftentimes it is for further evaluation. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they go in, they do an initial assessment of the individual, and multiple doctors analyze and assess the particular individual. They make that determination. And look, there could be instances where someone is deemed to be incompetent to stand trial, but they didn't commit a violent act. Maybe they were, shoplifting or some other nonviolent type of crime, and it's a different scenario. But when you have an individual like this particular person who not only was deemed to be incompetent to stand trial, had a long violent criminal history, it is unacceptable that there are not the tools there for the judges, prosecutor, whoever to insist on this individual being involuntarily committed. And if a court is unwilling to do that, then there should be an appeal that goes to the Court of Appeals.
Under existing law, though, I mean, am I looking at the district attorney in this situation for not following up and asking for the appellate process to move forward? I mean, frankly, Jack, in the spirit of looking for justice for this family, I'm looking for who to blame. And that kind of circles back to the question I originally asked Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House. And you obviously disagree with this, but he pointed at least partial blame to the Tennessee Senate in the special session. So I would ask you, is there a legitimate loophole in your assessment of this situation, or is it a combination of the district attorney not following up and doing the necessary paperwork to try to make sure that this guy gets kept off the street? Because we're told, I think the Tennessee Star did some good reporting on this, we're told that there are well in excess of 200 individuals in a similar situation in Davidson County right now.
Right, yeah, that are out on the streets when they should have. When I think a strong case could be made that they should be involuntarily committed. I want to be hesitant in terms of trying to blame a particular individual or a particular part of the process. What I want to make sure is that we, as members of the General Assembly, are looking at the policies that are on the books for instances like this, so that a DA, in the interest of justice and in the interest of protecting society from someone who is violent, can make that case for involuntary committal. And if the court disagrees, that happens all the time, that there is an appellate process that can be utilized. That's the type of policy that we need to be looking at. At the end of the day, there's one person to blame for this particular incident, and it's the individual who shot the weapon and a stray bullet that struck that beautiful 18-year-old girl. But as a result of that, and this all stems from our earlier conversations going back to March and April and through the special session about public safety. And these are good conversations to have, and because we know that so many of the people who are committing these crimes are otherwise mentally incapacitated or suffering from mental illness or drug and alcohol abuse. And when they are violent and they are a threat to society, they need to be removed, whether that's incarceration through a traditional jail or whether it's through a mental health treatment facility.
Senator Jack Johnson, Senate Majority Leader, with us for the better part of 30 minutes or so. Just to circle back, as I did with your colleague over in the House of Representatives last week, I want to circle back and just kind of reiterate for those just joining us. I understand he has his thoughts on where legislation was and where it wasn't. You were unaware of any legislation before that got voted on in the House or before the Senate that would have in any way prevented Shaquille Taylor from being released from jail?
I'm aware of no amendatory language, no bill language, or anything else that had been filed or introduced into the system. Now, perhaps there were discussions about crafting an amendment that might go on a future piece of legislation, but I'm not aware of any language that had been drafted and filed in the system. And it's all the more reason, and I keep I hate to bang on this drum, but it's so important for your listeners to understand the Senate position relative to that special session. That when we have a special session, we should go in for a specific purpose, know what that is in advance, and we go in, we debate it, and we do whatever we're going to do. We pass the legislation, we don't pass the legislation, and we go home. We do not need to be rushing legislation that is very complex, has multiple stakeholders, district attorneys, law enforcement, judges. To my knowledge, none of them had weighed in on any of this proposed language that was going to be considered in the matter of 12 to 24 hours in a special session. That's not a good way to run government, and I'm very proud of the Senate, the Tennessee State Senate, for the way we conducted ourselves in the special session, and I look forward to regular session when we reconvene in January and having more prolonged conversations about these very complex matters.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you stand by the Senate's position during the special session that you were there specific to the call of the governor and for no other purpose.
I absolutely do. I think we need to be very careful about going into a special session with notice requirements suspended and ramming legislation through. Might I remind you that there were over 105 bills filed by the House of Representatives, and many of them had Senate companions, full disclosure, but to be considered in a 4 to 5 day special session. That's not the way to govern a state. We can have these conversations while we're out of session, and when we reconvene in January, we can take up some of these very complex matters.
Jack, thank you for being on with us.
Thanks,
I appreciate you, and we appreciate everything that you do for Williamson County and the state of Tennessee.
Thanks, sir.
There's Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. We'll check in with Brian Wilson next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, the tone of the day, the theme of the day, Republican disagreement, whether it's in the Tennessee General Assembly. We just finished a conversation with Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, reflecting on a conversation that we had with House of Representatives Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton. Cameron will be back to respond. He's requested some time to respond, so he'll be back to respond later on in the week. And then you have the activities going on Capitol Hill. Brian Wilson joins us. Brian, fisticuffs. There's kidney punches going on Capitol Hill.
It's on both sides of the hill. I mean, first you have this the thing that happened in a committee hearing on the Senate side, where a senator from Oklahoma and the chief of the AFL-CIO nearly got into it. I mean, they stood up and were going to go round and round, as they say. And then, of course, if you have not heard, Representative Tim Burchett is accusing Kevin McCarthy of giving him an elbow shot to the kidneys. And by the way, some of the reporting that I've seen says that an NPR reporter witnessed it and, in fact, says that Burchett was nearly knocked into her by the impact of the shot that the former speaker allegedly gave to Burchett. Burchett and him have a little bit of bad blood over, the fact that McCarthy is no longer speaker. So,
well, and to add to the dog and pony show that this is, I'm seeing where Representative Matt Gaetz wants to file an ethics complaint on behalf of Burchett, something that I understand Burchett has no intention of doing. But obviously the bad blood between Gaetz and McCarthy well established. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, Brian.
And against that backdrop, there's serious work to be done on Capitol Hill today with regard to the budget, and they are divided on that as well. Republicans are. And it looks like this short-term solution that the speaker has come up with is going to pass only with the help of Democrats. So it's a very interesting time to watch the Hill.
What else, if anything? I mean, that's plenty for the 4 hours that we'll have with the drive, but what else is going on this afternoon?
I'm fascinated about, the ongoing efforts to shove Biden aside. And I've got several stories with regard to that today, because Democrats are now coming to the conclusion of things that I think America has known for some time. This guy's not up for another term. And so, that's interesting. I've got a border story. And, of course, we always have great response to what I think is one of the finest moments of the show. It's Matt Murphy's Wide World of Sport. I mean, Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports. You can come back and participate if you want at 525. The problem is I start down the pathway of the M's.
There's too many M's.
There's too many M's in this station. Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports at 525.
Well, I during my first about a year, for a while there, I was saying the one and only Brian Wilson. And I was doing this somewhat intentionally. Because I understand that there's, believe it or not, another Brian Wilson. But I got so many people on background. They felt compelled to send me emails, Brian, saying, hey, we love Brian Wilson, but there is another Brian Wilson out there. That I stopped doing that. So, yeah.
Within this company, there are 3 Brian Wilsons.
Have any of them sung for the Beach Boys? No. That's another Brian Wilson.
But I get a lot of their email, and they get a lot of mine. So,
so you know where the bones are buried with the Wilsons.
That's right, I do.
Well, Brian Wilson is coming up mere seconds from now, right after Mac Morey's newscast, with another edition of The Drive, and I'll be tuned in, and I hope you are as well. Hope you have a great afternoon, folks. We're back at high noon tomorrow for a midweek edition of The Matt Murphy Show. Until then, wonderful afternoon. Hug your loved ones. So long, folks.